What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Workshop video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn an old IKEA lamp into this awesome Edison bulb lamp. Stay tuned. After cleaning out part of my garage recently, I realized I've had this IKEA lamp sitting there for about a year now. I don't really like the style of the lamp, and I figured I could upcycle it into something I did like. I took the lamp apart, which was a pretty simple process. The main things I wanted to salvage here were the light socket and the cord. I knew I was going to be using a different switch, so I didn't worry about trying to keep that. If you don't have a similar lamp to disassemble, I'll leave a link in the video description to a similar socket and cord. Just make sure you don't have a socket with a switch built in if you're building this style of lamp. Once the lamp was disassembled, it was time to test the circuit. For the switch, I used a simple on-off toggle switch. This is an extremely simple circuit, even for one as electrically challenged as myself. Basically, there are two wires coming from the plug, a hot and neutral. The hot is wired to the toggle switch, and the switch dictates whether or not the bulb receives power. That's it. As I said, really simple. Once I verified the circuit worked, it was time to build the box. I used a few offcuts of walnut I had on hand, but you could just as easily use any of the hardwoods from your local home center. If you were going to build this with a stock wood size, I'd go for a 1x6. The size of the box is roughly 7 inches long by 4 inches tall by 4 inches wide. I cut the 45-degree angles on the long side pieces and the top at the miter saw, and then made the rest of the cuts at the table saw. You want 45-degree cuts on every edge except for the bottom of the side pieces. So the top has 45-degree cuts on each side, and the sides have 45-degree cuts on 3 of their 4 sides. Once you have all your angles cut, verify that they fit together nicely, and then cut a rabbet on the bottom of the side pieces. This rabbet will accept a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, make one pass, move the fence over, then make another pass, and this will get you your 1/4-inch rabbet if you have an 1/8-inch blade. Next, I drilled the holes in the top. I marked the center widthwise and then spaced the holes for the bulb and the switch evenly lengthwise. One tip, if you're using a hardwood, make sure to slow down your RPM when drilling the 1 5/8 hole. I drilled the holes with 2 different Forstner bits, 1 5/8 and 1/2 inch, and I used a drill press, but you could just as easily use a handheld drill. So now it's time for the glue up. I used the blue tape method, and this is actually the first time I've tried this. I made the mistake of using clamps on top of the blue tape, and this ended up skewing a few of my corners, which I later had to fill in. If you're doing this, just use blue tape and make sure each corner is tight. It generates plenty of clamping pressure to close up the joints. After the glue dried, I sanded the edges, rounded over the corners with an 1/8 inch radius roundover bit, and then filled in any gaps with Timbermate wood filler. I let that dry and then did some more sanding, working my way up from 80 grit to 180 grit. For the finish, I used amber shellac. I had some trouble with the finish going on unevenly, and if I were to use this again, I would thin it with denatured alcohol and apply with a rag or bristle brush instead of a foam brush. I sanded between coats with 320 grit sandpaper and used about 4 coats in total. For the bottom, I used a scrap piece of 1/4-inch plywood that actually already had some stain applied. I drilled a few holes for these small oak buttons I got at the home center and used them as feet. I glued them into place with some CA glue. During final assembly, I cut a small notch in the bottom panel using a coping saw to allow the cord to run out, and then installed the socket into the top using CA glue. Once the socket was glued in place, I attached the toggle switch, then closed up the bottom using a few screws. Once the bottom is installed, the lamp is done. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This was a pretty simple project. It was fun to incorporate some electronics. This is really the first wiring that I've done in any projects. Any of the electronics I've incorporated before have all been pre-wired, but I think the result was really nice. It's basically turning an old IKEA lamp that I wasn't using anymore into a cool looking lamp that we'll get a lot of use out of. I think this is going to be a bedside table lamp in our bedroom. So if you guys enjoyed this project, please go ahead and get subscribed. I have new project videos every Tuesday. Also, I have a second channel where I do my tool reviews and weekly maker roundups, so go ahead and get subscribed there as well. And last, if you want to support me a little further, check me out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/craftedworkshop. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and until next time, happy building.